typical day in the life of a 13-year-old girl in the Soviet Union. You see, we only had 2.5 TV channels to watch, and if somebody in the Communist Party died, we watched the funeral for a whole entire week. Can you imagine that? So music was completely outlawed if it was coming from anywhere but Soviet Union. So was film, that was prohibited as well. But on the black market, you could get films, but all of those films were dubbed by one human being. So whether or not I was watching Freddy Krueger on 9.5 Weeks, it was dubbed by a single person. Can you imagine that? And that guy was taking a risk with his life in order to even do that. Business was also highly illegal. But today was an incredible day in my life because one of the first ever American bands was coming to the Soviet Union. And I had tickets, and nobody was gonna ruin my vibe. So my parents came to me at that moment and they said, we might be going to America soon. I'm like, America? Wow, I don't know about that. I'm 13, I'm gonna lose my friends. However, I was fascinated by two things. I thought I'm gonna see tall buildings and sexy people when I get here. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Tall buildings, sexy people, baby money falling from the sky. All right, let's go. So I was a Jew in the Soviet Union. And being a Jew was not a great thing in the Soviet Union. It was like a disease. And it was not a religion, because all religion in the Soviet Union was completely against the law. It was more like it's in your passport, it's your nationality, and that determined your fate forever. You were just gonna be discriminated against, whether you were gonna get into college, whether you were gonna get fired from your job. All those things were not for us, because we were Jews. So we would gather in kitchens, and we would hear of these other places where Jews could be free. They could live there, they could be themselves. So people slowly started saying, maybe there's a better life for us somewhere. And across the land in the United States of America, the American Jews got together, and they marched in Washington. 250,000 of them asking President Reagan to lobby Gorbachev to let my people go. And that actually happened. Can you imagine 250,000 people that never met somebody like me, or people who were Jewish that were suffering? They didn't know our names, we didn't speak the same language, but they were determined. They collected millions of dollars. Sometimes it was a breakfast of champions where they would collect $1 billion. Or sometimes it was a girl with a little blue can walking around neighborhood, and it was just a few cents. So they let my people go. And I'm grateful for that. We should all be grateful, actually, because Sergey Brin was also let go. Can you imagine life without Google? I mean, where would we find all the cute dog and cat videos? Oh, how would we learn everything in the world that we know now? Or how would you even know that the most Googled author and speech of all times is Martin Luther King? Can you imagine if Sergey Brin would have to stay behind? The world would be a very different place. See, our journey was not an easy journey. We had to get on planes, we had to get on trains, and it took us a long time. We only left with $100 in 6 suitcases. That's all we had in our pockets. And on that train, when we were getting on and off, we only had 3 minutes. And I was standing there at that moment thinking to myself, wow, why are my parents doing this to me? Because you see, those American Jews were building an invisible bridge for us to walk on to get to the other side. But when you build those bridges for somebody else, you still have to do the walking, and it's not that easy. So on October 24th, 1989, I arrived to the place that had tall buildings and sexy people. So I thought, Oak Park, Michigan. You can only imagine how disappointed I was that there was absolutely no tall buildings, no sexy people around. I just had a really small apartment with a window, and everything sucked, and it was different. I was like, why are these people in America always have food in their hands? Where they're going? Why are they eating in a car? What is this place called Taco Bell across the street? What is this? What are all these things? And I was looking for my people. What I did have in that shitty apartment was a small TV, and it wasn't 2.5 channels. It had a lot of channels. And I found my people on channel 62 on a new dance show. That's right. That's right. Those were my people, okay? They were the coolest. They had the best outfits. They had the best music. I mean, they were so amazing. I would sit there every day going, where am I going to find these people? One day I will find them. And you know what? They looked nothing like me, right? We looked Nothing alike. But those constructs that are built for us, we are all the same people. We bleed the same. When we give birth to children, they cry the same, okay? Last week, my wife gave birth to our twins. They cried the same way as any child in the world would cry. We are human beings. That's exactly who we are. So when I got here, these were my people. And Detroit enveloped me as I walked through that bridge. And it gave me everything. It gave me music, it gave me culture, it gave me grit. It welcomed me. Maybe not with open arms, because this place is hard, but it was amazing. So as I grew, I said, who and how am I gonna build those bridges for? And I've built many of them, but I'm gonna tell you about just one of them. So you see, I was born in Soviet Union, I told you, Moscow, which is now the capital of Russia. My wife was born in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. So on February 24th, when the war started, you can imagine how devastated we were. Both of us were devastated because we are people, and we had to do something about it. We had to start building those freaking bridges for other people across the world. So we started working inside Ukraine as much as we could with local volunteers, because the nonprofits were not going in there, besides World Central Kitchen. It was hard to find people on the ground. My number started getting passed around, and people started calling me. Actually, people called me from under that bridge that you see. And all they wanted to do is they wanted to hear somebody on the other side of the phone to tell them that it's going to be okay. That's all they wanted, to know that it will be okay. So we started working diligently, getting as many people out as possible, providing food, and doing all those things that need to be done because we are human beings. And it's not over there. The world is one place. So I'm gonna tell you one story really quickly. I got a phone call from Natalia, mother of two, cat and a dog. The bombs started falling, so they went to the nearby shelter. Next thing you know, they moved into a village 4 hours away, and food was becoming scarce, and she was very scared, so I said, let's get you out. I finally convinced volunteers that would drive them for 3 days, and that child saw more devastation than anybody should see. And we got them into Poland with help of many people, because it doesn't take one person to build a bridge, it takes many. And some of them are actually sitting in this room right now. You know who you are, I'm grateful to you. So we got them to Poland, and then we said, what are we gonna do now? And she told me that she spoke Czech. So actually the guy that used to work in this building, Rick Manor, that moved to Prague, answered the call to help me build the bridge. I called Rick and I said, Rick, she speaks Czech. Can you welcome her into Prague? And he did. So this is Natalia and Andrei. They're very happy. They live in Prague now. And we forever changed their life. Because you know what? You haven't lived until you had helped somebody that could never pay you back. Because that's what life is all about. In Talmud, they say, the best day in your life is not the day that you die, the day that you're born. That's not the most important day. The most important day is the day you die, because you can only take your deeds, not your riches. What are your deeds gonna be when you go? One last thing. Last month, I was at a dinner for highly performing entrepreneurs. This woman was sitting right next to me. We were having dinner, talking. There was a lot of people. We had casual conversation. I started a conversation across with another woman, and I was telling my refugee story, because I'm a refugee. And the woman next to me started crying, bawling. We all got scared, turned around. We said, what is wrong? Why are you crying? So she hugged me and she said, in the 80s, I was a little girl with a blue can. And now I'm sitting next to you, and I could see that that was not in vain. So I have one question left for you. And that is, how many invisible bridges will you build in your lifetime? Thank you, Detroit.